Hello and welcome. My name is Sean. This is Introduction to Political Science. I have helped to create this course, and so today I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what to expect, go over the goals and the objectives, and then maybe lesson by lesson, I'll sort of explain to you what to expect and what's expected of you. So first, this class is dense. There is a lot of information in this class. If you've ever wondered sort of how the political world works and all of the sort of facets of that, for example, the way that the media and the covers a story that's political or a political ideology and how parties sort of try to adhere to those ideologies. If you've ever wondered how the economy is structured, if you've ever wondered, you know, the specifics about the U.S. Legislative branch or executive, all of that is included in this. This is a big, dense course, and you're going to cover a lot of stuff in this. But hopefully, in the end, you come away with a better understanding of sort of how the political world works. And you'll be able to understand the news or history that you've read a little bit better. So the first lesson of many is a good jumping off point. It's basically an introduction to political science. What is political science itself? So you find out what kind of questions political scientists asks, what kind of problems they seek to understand. And so this first lesson is basically just what are you about to study? Lesson 2 has to do with the media. And so this is a kind of an in-depth look at the way that journalism works, the media bias for one group or another. What are some of the potential impacts of the way that people get their news? Lesson 3 is about political ideologies. So if you know the terms communism or neoconservatism or fascism or democracy. And this, again, will give you sort of an overview on all of these different terms so that when someone says, you know, I'm a neoliberal when it comes to trade, that actually will make sense to you after you study this section. The fourth lesson looks at what does it mean to be a country that has specific political ideologies, or what does it mean to be a part of a democratic country as opposed to an authoritarian country? Or what does it mean to belong to a monarchy or a republic? Lesson 5 is all about the beginnings of the U.S. Government. How did they start the government after the American Revolution? Did you know that they had one kind of government that didn't work, so they had to redo something else? This was the Articles of Confederation, and eventually they wrote the Constitution, which was not something that just happened after the American Revolution. And then basically it looks at what does the Constitution cover, and then how did it come to be, like the Bill of Rights, which everybody in America knows about for sure, but you might not know all of them and you might not know all of the amendments. So this is a kind of an in-depth look at the Constitution, the evolution of it, how it started, and sort of where it is today. The next lesson is kind of a nitty-gritty lesson, and it's about policy, public policy. And this has to do with sort of the steps that a political party takes when it's in power in order to work for the people in which they think is best. So it's the discussion of policy makers, people who decide on, you know, what to spend money on. What's the public policy process? After public policy, we look at the executive branch and basically what kind of power does the President of the United States have in relation to public policy, right? They have an idea of what they want to get done. How do they do that? What is the power of the presidency? And how the president tries to push the policy that they were elected to office for in the first place. After the executive branch, we look at the legislative branch, which is Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. And we first figure out, like, well, how did they even come up with this system? What kind of power does the Congress have? How do you become a representative or a senator? And then what kind of work does one do and the other do, and how do they come together in order to create laws? Next, we look at the judicial branch, and this is the Congress and the president have done their job. They've passed these laws. They've tried to institute public policy, and now you have the judicial branch, which has to decide on whether those laws are constitutional. Now that we've covered the three branches of government and the Constitution, it's time to look at civil liberties. And this is basically, what kind of rights do normal citizens have? What can be done as a citizen in this system? Next, we'll look at interest groups. And this basically means like a collective unit trying to help individuals, like a union is an interest group. Or the realtors group, or chambers of commerce are all interest groups. Basically, their job is to sort of petition lawmakers to say, hey, there's this injustice being done, and we need you to do something about it. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. This whole section sort of looks at the evolution of interest groups. Political science isn't called political science for no reason. I mean, there's a lot of sort of data-driven things about political science. In this next section on public opinion, this is all about sort of polling and having people ask questions about, do you agree that this law is good or bad? Or, you know, who will you vote for? Then you're going to learn about the news media. So earlier we talked about sort of journalism and biases, but this is more about the important ways that media reflects or drives public policy, and what is the function of media in a free society, and whether or not the media drives the story or follows the story, or maybe both. Then we take a look at political parties, and this is political parties mostly in the sort of Western Hemisphere, the United States, Canada, Mexico, and how political parties were formed. With this idea of political parties, another thing happens, which is polarization. And that means that people pick a side and then they kind of dig in. Another topic that's quite relevant to today is the election process, how it all works. How does voting work in the United States? We have federal voting, we have state voting. Why is there low voter turnout in the United States? What are ways that groups work to increase voter participation and registration? What is the American election system like compared to other systems? What is the Electoral College? This second to the last section is about economics. What is the difference between deficit and debt? What is Keynesian economics? What is laissez-faire economics? What do they mean by inflation or deflation? What's a depression? You learn about the Fed in this, and the Fed is the entity in the United States that basically prints the money. The last section is about international relations, and this basically means, like, how does the United States deal with foreign powers? What kind of policies do they have when it comes to dealing with China or with Europe or with the Middle East? There are think tanks out there that try to come up with different policy ideas. And so what are some of their ideas? You know, what are these think tanks coming up with? The project for this course is one in which you become a political scientist. And you can do this either through a presentation where you can film yourself, or you can do a written essay. And basically the idea is you think about what is a problem in the United States or in the world, and what kind of policy could you come up with to sort of help this problem? And we cover a lot in this class. So it's something that you have come across in this course over time. You can say, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense. Or, yeah, media bias is a problem. We need to institute a policy about media bias. Here's what the policy is. Okay, that's it. Good luck with this course. I'm one of the experts, so I might see you when you get to the end.